Hey, how's it going, guys? What's going on? Thank you for coming on tonight.
Hey, Messiah. Hey,
Absolutely.
Dr. Evil Genius. Thanks for
Yeah.
having us. And glad to see you, Shawana.
Yeah. Awesomeness.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess first of all, just introduce yourselves. Like, tell what kind of work you guys been up to recently.
I'm going to let Shawana lead here. She's been up to all the work.
Oh my God. So, oh God. Today was so interesting. Today, I'm preparing for tomorrow. Tomorrow I have two food giveaways. One is in Harlem at 132nd and Madison, and the other one is in the Bronx, with Fernando Cabrera, uh, Councilman Fernando Cabrera on Jerome Avenue. We're very clear right now that, Monday, they just called schools closed, and
Sorry to
Thanksgiving is
interrupt.
coming.
Can we get a little bit of a background on who Shawana is, so we have a better
Yes,
idea of like what you do and the scope
ab-
of what you do?
absolutely. So my name is Shawanna Vaughn. I'm the director of Silent Cry Inc. And Silent Cry deals with mass incarceration and violence prevention. And one of my biggest issues right now is legislation. It's called post traumatic prison disorder, Shawanna W76337, which is a mass incarceration mental health bill. So that is my biggest. That's like right now birthing my third child, and it's legislation.
And what is that legislation supposed to accomplish uh, for the community?
So the legislation is supposed to accomplish a lot for a lot of people. It is going to allow people that are incarcerated to get mental health services 60 days upon incarceration. Um, Everything, including medicine, but I want to try every alternative until you get to medicine, which will be vendor therapy, um, which would include art therapy, um, yoga, meditation, all forms of non traditional approaches to healing. And it would require that guards be mandated to therapy. It reduces harm reduction. And that people leave prison with Medicaid cards, people leave prison insured, and that people doing long term time are guaranteed vendor therapy. Just because your body is locked up does not mean your mind can't be free. And post incarceration, um, I'm asking for therapies, but not limited to the individual, but family as well, because we're clear that families go to prison. It's not just one person, it's families and communities. Um, I believe that this bill will allow to reduce recidivism, because if your mind is well, then you can be well. Healing is like birth and pain. I feel like my hashtag is, birth and pain is like birthing a baby with no anesthetic. You just got to go through it. And I just believe that if we can heal, that we can reduce recidivism.
I mean, people
And
don't go to
everybody
prison
talking.
because their lives are so great. They go
No,
there
we go
because
because
things
they're in
aren't great.
trauma.
Right.
Hmm.
So if you want to keep the jails
Everybody's in
empty,
trauma. Treat
Yeah,
trauma.
yeah. So how's the
Treat
work been?
trauma.
So Lucy, like introduce. So what kind of work you introduce yourself? Like, where you come from and what you've been up to these days.
I'm really honored to be here to talk to you and your listeners tonight, and especially to be in Shawanna's company, who has been elevating these issues literally tirelessly for so long. My name is Lucy Lang. I am a native New Yorker, and I have spent my career working in criminal justice reform from inside and outside the system. As a national criminal justice reform leader and a former assistant district attorney, I know exactly that message of that fabulous video you just played, that the district attorney's job is far more than just that of a prosecutor. Of course, prosecution is one of the tools that the district attorney can wield, but in an ideal world, the district attorney's highest calling is really the calling of prevention. And in many respects, isn't that all of our highest calling? Prevention of harms to one another. And that requires exactly what Shawanna is describing. investing in pro-social services, in supporting people and preventing them from making bad decisions, and making sure that people have food on the table and that people have access to education. Messiah, we were together handing out turkeys not very long ago to formerly incarcerated women. And a woman came in that night and told us that her A+ daughter was failing the 11th grade all of a sudden because she can't access Wi-Fi in the shelter that they live in. Now, that's not a criminal justice problem, but it's all of our problem. And we need a set of systems that work together to address those problems, to make sure that people don't end up against the backstop of the criminal justice system, which has become a catch-all for so many social problems.
I mean, it's not a criminal justice problem, but it is.
Right.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, the idea of reducing recidivism is reduce people's interaction with law enforcement. Reduce people's interaction with law enforcement, then you don't need, a giant army of police officers. If like you have more proper reentry services, more proper preventive services, more proper substance abuse services, if all those things were more in place to prevent people from ever seeing a siren show up at their house or show up in their neighborhood, So
for anybody who wants to know, that is what defund the police means. Just in case, you're still not quite sure. This is the kind of shit we're talking about.
Yeah. So that's the thing. But when you watch that last video and you see like what's the role of a district attorney, like I to be honest, like the second half of it, I didn't even know they're responsible for that stuff. I thought I was like,
I watch SVU, man.
No, I just thought they were the prosecutor and that's it. I didn't know like they were part of the preventive effort of it, part of like the trauma informed effort of it. That's like way crucial of it, and it feels like, that's what's needed. And so I want to just stand where we are now because we're in the middle of a pandemic. And how has the work for you two has been different since the pandemic? How's it been like? Working from home? Has it been like out there just like giving out food all the time? How's the neighborhoods been for you in New York City, Manhattan, the past like few weeks?
The past few weeks for me have been incredibly inspiring. I'm running for Manhattan District Attorney, which gives me the privilege of talking to people all over the city. Now, the majority of it is talking to people through Zoom and on the phone and in structured remote environments so that everyone can be safe. And some of it is at a distance in furtherance of social services and things like that. But it has been amazing hearing the stories of people who are struggling with the public health crisis that we're facing now. And of course, it's not just the public health crisis of the pandemic. It's coupled with the recession, with 1 million New Yorkers out of work. And the public health crisis that has long existed around substance misuse and homelessness and mental health challenges in New York City that have gone unaddressed and have been caught up in the criminal justice system, exacerbating this uniquely American, unconscionable problem of mass incarceration. And so another uniquely American thing that I think is worth pointing out, because it's not in that great video, is that we're the only country in the world that elects our district attorneys. Every other country appoints their prosecutors. So we have this uniquely American electoral power over our DAs, and we get to decide how they're going to invest that power of the attorney for the district. And so some measure of it traditionally has always been prosecution, but it's incredibly exciting and energizing to see prosecutors all over the country trying to think about how they can say, no, I'm choosing not to prosecute what is rightly handled as a public health matter, like substance misuse. And so instead of calling the police, we're going to bring in trained clinicians to respond when someone is suffering, and bring them instead of to a courthouse or a precinct to a place where they can get treatment and support. That there are jurisdictions that are thinking about things like housing first solutions to homelessness instead of putting people through the cycle of Rikers Island, which we've done for so long in New York City.
So what ends up happening is that you take a profession that was supposed to be about justice and being for the people. It got skewed towards it being kind of more like a game where, you're trying to elevate your visibility. So what do you need? You need a high conviction rate. Well, then, if you need a high conviction rate, then how do you get that? Okay, well, we have to play these games with the attorneys and the public defenders, and we have to say what we need to say to get, the judge to rule in our favor so that we can further our own careers. However, you're playing a career game with other people's lives. So to see it go from that back to what it was supposed to be, which is helping people and making it more about justice, whatever form justice actually takes. It could just be, hey, maybe we don't, prosecute to the fullest extent of the law. Maybe we help them not be hungry and they won't steal food.
Yeah. But at the same time, I just heard right on the street, Lucy, just to tie more into this former incarcerated woman, this in general, this because I worked in a documentary called Against All Odds, and it was about my mom, who was she was in and out of jail 4 times, but it was just the larger picture of former incarcerated. I realized that why is their recidivism rate almost higher than men? And I realized that, that's because there are a lot of times 80% of moms in jails and prisons are mothers. So when you incarcerate, that goes back to what you're saying, you incarcerate one person, you incarcerate many people. You incarcerate their nieces, you incarcerate the grandmother they were taking care of, you incarcerate their uncles and aunts. And I just feel it's from your perspective of what things recently have you been working on that when it comes to helping formerly incarcerated women in New York City?
Well, Shawanna is a real expert on this issue, but I want to talk a bit about some of the things that the pandemic has, I think, highlighted that we should be really thoughtful about. One is the fact that even as the prison population nationally is finally decreasing, even if a bit slowly, the number of women in prison is not decreasing. In fact, it seems to be going up. So we need to be really thoughtful as we make policy changes to make sure that we are not offsetting things and creating negative collateral consequences, and that the efforts to end mass incarceration mean ending it for everyone, women, men, people of color, and everyone, not increasing some and decreasing others. I think that the pandemic is in some ways, it's incredibly devastating, but in some ways there's an exciting moment because it has really energized people around the need for reform. And part of it is the coupling of the realization around racial disparities in health outcomes that were highlighted by the pandemic. And part of it is George Floyd's murder and the ensuing heightened public awareness around police violence in this country. But there is a mood in favor, an appetite for transformation that I've never seen in my lifetime. And I think it's really incumbent on those of us who work in the system and with the system to take this moment and use it responsibly to change things for the next generation. So to my mind, that looks like the fact that so many courthouses shut down during the course of the pandemic and police stopped arresting so many people and the sky didn't fall. Let's not go back to doing business as usual.
Yeah.
We released significant numbers of people from Rikers Island here in New York City, and the sky didn't fall. Now, of course, we do have an increase in apparent street homelessness, but we know the answer isn't Rikers.
Yeah.
So how do we take advantage of the fact that the system had to shrink because of COVID and say we're going to keep it this small and solve these problems in other ways that are more productive, more sustainable, more humane, that treat people with dignity?
It almost feels like with the expansion of police budgets and the expansion of the force and the militarization of these forces, it almost seems like we're throwing good money after bad. We know that the money was bad. We're trying to justify all of the measures that we took, to just keep on,
it feels like a dad that's got bought a whole bunch of power tools and doesn't know how to do carpentry. It's like you just have a whole garage full of stuff, but you just we don't need that right now. It's like you don't know how to use it. So it just feels like we're stuck with all this stuff during the pandemic, heavy-handed. And that's what exactly what you mean, Dr. Virginius, kind of feels that way. And I guess the George Floyd moment kind of really snapped at people's minds about that kind of correlation of that. Why we have all these things, but we don't have we don't have a social safety net, So
one of the beautiful things about, you know, because it still bothers me when I think about just the still pictures, because I refuse to watch the video. You know, what happened to George Floyd actually brought all four of us together, because, you know, this show was birthed out of, you know, rants that were made in the aftermath of that murder. And that was a murder. I don't care what anybody says. And, you know, that gave birth to us having this platform, and then giving us the opportunity to talk to ladies like you, Lucy and Shawanna.
Yeah. And I feel like, and this even like you saw in the elections in 2020, you saw Los Angeles, they plan to like give a lot of money towards, not enough, but they're planning to like fund reentry services, and you have other measures of like different little policy switches that happened because of, and then you had a situation in Minnesota that just went super blue, like fantastically blue, like, you know, more than usual, you know.
Yep.
So you have all these different moments, and it feels incredible that we can keep moving with this momentum here.
Yeah.
And yeah.
The other piece of the puzzle, and I think about it in the context of women in particular, but it's true in general, that we can take from the pandemic, is that systems adapted to be able to do a lot of things remotely. And I handled many violent crimes and domestic violence cases during my time as a prosecutor.
Oh, wow.
It's often very challenging for parents, for women in particular, to come to court, to report a crime when it happened. And that's for a whole slew of reasons. But one of them is the sheer burden of having to take the time off of work, find childcare, and take advantage of the services that the district attorney or other agencies in New York, we use Safe Horizons to help support victims of domestic violence. It can be time consuming.
Yeah, I heard of Safe Horizons when I was in the shelter. Yeah.
So you know that there's real potential there. And I think that maybe now that we see more things happening digitally, there may be room for people to report and get services, get access to therapeutic services without having to schlep to another borough or spend the money to get all the way downtown or hire a babysitter or what have you. And so there is, I have a deep hope that we are going to see some meaningful change in how victims are treated as a result of this as well. And that may have the effect of addressing some of the racial injustice we see in the system as well, where it's just easier for some subsets of people to be able to file their complaints and cooperate with prosecutors as compared to vulnerable communities for whom it can be very difficult and often alienating. And that's, of course, on the prosecutor's office to bring people in, to be out in the community, to engage, to educate, and to hear what the community really wants, and then seek to invest in and provide that.
Yeah. So Shawanna, like pretty much we had a panel, and then like you asked me to help you get some turkeys. I was like, yeah, I definitely do that. So it's almost like I was on the panel and I went off to actually do some action, actually use some elbow grease, and I went in. So like this is a follow-up question for you before we wrap up this interview soon. But it's just like, what can New Yorkers do just off of this chat right now to help you, to help Lucy? Like, what can they do right now to like help support your work and you know, for this holiday season?
So right now, I am busy, like Messiah said, giving out food. Busy getting ready for Christmas. Busy getting ready for the fact that these children are not going back to school soon. Like, we're just going to deal with that reality. So, and to push legislation, I'm looking for interns. I'm looking for volunteers. You can find me. My email is Shawanna, SHAWANNA at silentcryinc.org. And I'm on Facebook at Silent Cry Inc., Twitter, Silent Cry Inc. SV, and Instagram at Silent Cry Inc. Time is money. And if you can't give time, please give your money. And that's just, that's just being honest.
Money is time, and time is money. So,
and time is money. Yeah. And I take both because they both help the greater good. And while I support a book club in prison, and I'm trying to teach people that are incarcerated to write policy and legislation. I believe that that is important. And they acted their way in, but they're going to have to write their way out. And as a formerly incarcerated person, I wish I knew the things that I knew now then, because I'm suffering the remnants and the effects of mass incarceration. And it stops with me, not my children. And so I believe that we have the ability to write the policy and the legislation and take it to the legislators, because I do not believe that anybody who's going to get a college degree and study policy and political science has the ingenuity to write a policy that's going to help formerly incarcerated people or dent mass incarceration, because you don't have the experience. Therefore, you can't write pieces of legislation. And I pride myself on asking people incarcerated, what do they want from me? Not what can I do for them? And I think that's where people in mass incarceration or in any fight get it wrong. How are you fighting for people, but you don't go to the people that you're fighting for and ask them what they want? That's the most imperative thing in helping anybody, is to be effective. And so 2021, I have 2 more bills to come out, and I look forward to help. I look forward to people joining the fight. Thank you, Messiah, not just for being a sideline cheerleader, but a doer of your word. You showed up.
I thought I got a ticket, but it was actually a ticket that fell out my car. Someone put it in my windshield.
Yeah.
Someone protected me with my old ticket. But I just want to, But I just want to, real quick, like, what dates should people look out for? What dates should people look out for? Important dates. When it
Tomorrow.
comes to elections, when it comes to legislation, when it comes to in the future, like,
Lucy, tell them.
Yeah.
All right. So tomorrow you got to help out Shawanna. Tomorrow and up through Thanksgiving, please support Silent Cry, because they are getting money.
Tomorrow, November 20th, because it's going to be YouTube forever. So make sure November 20th is going to be go down to Harlem.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then June 22nd of 2021, there are major races across New York City, including mine, which is a non-Democratic primary for district attorney. And I'm the only candidate who has experience reforming the system from inside and outside. It is precisely for the reason Shawanna just described, that as an assistant district attorney, I created a college and prison class to bring assistant district attorneys inside of New York's prisons to build policy alongside incarcerated students, and then to give the incarcerated students college credits so that when they came home, they had access to college resources and job prospects. And it is working in that collaborative policymaking environment that I learned that we have to go directly to the source to be able to solve problems. The people closest to the problems are closest to the solution. And that's why I'm running for district attorney, to be that kind of leader at this time when the city needs it so desperately, and to build a system that is based on safety, racial and gender equity, and on the dignity of everyone who comes through the system. I'm really proud to have been endorsed by the mother of Sean Bell, Valerie Bell, the mother of Philando Castile, Valerie Castile, sister of Delron Small, Victoria Davis, as well as a number of women who are survivors of Harvey Weinstein's rape and sexual abuse. And the endorsements of people who have been through the system, who have experienced the worst things that society and criminal justice can do, are the people who are going to inform the next generation for all of our children. Because I agree with Shawanna that it stops with her and it stops with all of us. Mass incarceration is a problem that we can solve in our lifetimes. And because of that, we must solve it. I'm so grateful to you, Messiah and Dr. Evil Genius, for bringing me on. Yeah. I love what you all do. I love your voices. And Shawanna, of course, I love you. So everyone, please vote. Please follow me at Lucy Lang NYC on social, and check out my website, which is votelucylang.com. I invite all kinds of support. I have advisory councils to the campaign, including a youth advisory council. If there are young people who'd like to get involved, I would love to hear from you. Please reach out through social media or on my website. Thank you so much. This really is it's a happy hour.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Lucy. So so follow us on Twitter, YouTube. We're on YouTube. We got almost 45,000 subscribers, so everyone can check us out. Check out this interview with Shawanna and Lucy. So, but before you guys go, because I have a feeling June 2021 sounds like it's gonna be huge. So it sounds like within 5 months you're probably gonna be on Jimmy Kimmel or something like that. So we want to like do some little bit fun with you.
I got questions too. I was waiting for that segment to end so I can talk shit.
So one thing before we go, we just want to show, because I love film. I love film a lot. I love film so much. So we have like this funny kind of list of like the most awesome district attorneys in movies. And we're going to see if any of these like look familiar. But we hope that for Lucy, it's going to be a woman attorney. It's going to be the awesome attorney soon. And, someone's going to make a movie about that. Someone can move the Black Power Magic Hour thing from Lucy's face. But like, this is the first attorney, which is Bernie. This is from a movie with Jack Black. I don't know if you guys remember this movie. It's with Jack Black. He plays like this really hunky-dory guy. It's based on a true story. And like, so Matthew McConaughey, he plays the DA. So you're going to be in good place with Matthew McConaughey. He plays the DA. And then George Clooney, Michael Clayton, he plays a former DA who's now like kind of a corporate fixer. So that's like the slickest kind of DA kind of movie is Michael Clayton. And then you have Primal Fear, which is like kind of over the top. You can see the screenshot with a headlock. And then the most famous, and then everyone pretty much knows about Harvey Dent.
Yeah, I just watched that movie for the first time last week,
which is spelled wrong in the website. So that's the first one. So and then we have these. So I don't know if anyone else has any ideas of any kind of famous district attorneys before we let our guests go, of any famous you can think of in movies.
I'm always thinking like SVU.
Yeah.
Also, Sam Waterston played probably best played any DA role ever. That was, you're talking about like the regular Law and Order. Like those are the things that I think of when I think of district attorneys.
Yeah, I think of like
ADAs.
Yeah, I think of like whenever a DA walks into a movie, it's like the stakes just got real high in the movie. Even if it's an action movie or romance, a comedy, it doesn't matter what genre. It just feels like as soon as the DA comes in this movie, it's like higher, and it's like. So Lucy Long, it's really appreciated to be on here. Shawanna, even more, because like both of you are out there in Manhattan and Harlem, putting in the real work. I really appreciate you guys coming in tonight with us to hang. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I got a question. Absolutely. I got a question for.
So go ahead, Study with Genius before we. Yeah.
So when you were talking about people being in the system, working in the system and outside the system, and really getting an idea of what the system is like. You being the only candidate, obviously, that has experience on both sides. It reminds me of, I believe it was a Lockup Raw episode that I saw many years ago, where a former district attorney ended up, I think he was involved in some kind of corruption connected to his job. He ended up with a 10-year prison sentence. And he gave a very unique viewpoint of the length of sentences handed out to convicts. And what he said was, if district attorneys don't really have the concept of time, they don't really understand what the concept of time, because then it just becomes numbers. You have, we're giving out, this number of years, we're giving out this number of decades, this number of months. But to give out 120 months, it just sounds like, it may seem like lenience on the outside, but the actual time done is something completely different. I think he went on to say that he would not have given out the sentences that he would have given out if he had that concept of time that he now has being behind bars. So I just kind of wanted to get your opinion on sentencing and charging of suspects, and how things could change when you're dealing with somebody that has a better understanding of what these things actually mean in practice, not just on paper.
I'm really glad that you asked. It's one of the reasons that I created the college and prison course I described, to get my colleagues to understand a little small bit of what a day in prison means, so that when they're making the decision about recommending 3 years or 5 years, they know that that 2 years makes a critical difference. And that when they're thinking about an alternative disposition versus prison, they know what an impact prison is. So I couldn't agree more that we have to think about it really meaningfully in two key ways, that aside from getting all the cases out of the system that don't belong there and scaling alternatives to incarceration, which absolutely has to be done, but are really to reduce sentences overall. So that means stop using mandatory minimums. We have mandatory minimums in New York State, including for gun possession. It's resulted in young people getting locked up for outright possession and cycling through the system repeatedly.
Dude shot himself in the leg. He still got 3 years.
We got
Plaxico. Better bombed himself.
That's that Florida?
He shot him. No, that was here in New York.
Oh, it's in New York? Oh, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
Plaxico Burress, when he was a wide receiver, like for one of the local teams.
I remember that.
He was in the club. He cheddar bombed himself, got 3 years. How you get 3 years for shooting yourself?
Yeah, Florida news has blotted out me.
I mean, I forgot that out of my sleep, let me be clear, but at the same time, we should think about mandatory minimums and do away with them. And then another piece is not using sentencing enhancements like 3 strikes laws. And we do have those in New York. They're used regularly. We need to stop locking people up for 16 to life. We need to stop locking people up for 25 years. We know that at this point in New York, the prisons are not full of people who are there on marijuana charges. The prisons are full of people in charge of violent crime, but they're doing sentences that are unconscionably long by modern standards. So a district attorney can make a real impact by looking at old cases and reviewing cases in which the sentences are simply too long by modern standards, considering clemency, advocating for parole release at the first time someone's appearance from the parole board. These are all ways that a district attorney can make meaningful impact. Since I know you guys love movies, I just dropped in the chat. Check out this
I didn't mean to shoot it on
Oh yeah, 30 courtroom scenes.
For Wired, evaluating some courtrooms.
Oh, whoa!
That you'll get a kick out of.
Oh, we gotta.
Yeah. Can we cram this in there?
No, we have to show that. We have to show that the next show. Yeah, I'm gonna show that the next show.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Want a live reaction?
And I wanted to say on the subject of
because it's meta, because it's Lucy talking about courtroom.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
No, that's too meta.
On the subject of people thinking that the DAs look like all the Michael Flynn and everyone you laid out, I want to just give some love to the amazing Black women prosecutors in this country. There are 2,600 elected DAs across the country, and a tiny fraction of them are Black women. But Kim Fox in Chicago, Kim Gardner in St. Louis, Sherry Boston in Atlanta, Diana Beckton in California. There are some incredible Black women who are making transformational change in the office of district attorney, and they are getting, it is an uphill battle for them every day. And so to the extent that we can support women who are doing the work inside of government in those jurisdictions, I encourage you to get to know those remarkable women and support their work, elevate them on social media, and promote progressive, informative prosecution everywhere, because it's to all of our benefit. It will make all of us safer. And
you lost one to the White House.
Yeah. But thank you. We have to move because we're thank you, Shawanna. Thank you, Lucy, for coming on tonight. I really appreciate it coming on this late on Thursday night, and hopefully we can have you on again before you.
Thank you, guys.
Before you guys get super famous. So come back soon. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. So that was an incredible interview.
We're so alone now.
Hopefully you guys can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. We have over 45,000 subscribers on act.tv. Check out clips out there. You're gonna check that interview with Lucy Long and Shawanna Vaughn. Check us out. So there we go.